Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favourite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful, with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher, and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. The Vienna Opera House was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant, refined, every guest playing their role in glittering gowns and tails beneath crystal chandeliers. Then Baron Friedrich von Altenburg was found dead in his private box. His monocle shattered on the velvet carpet beside an overturned champagne flute. The Baron's face was frozen in a mask of astonishment, one gloved hand still clutching the armrest as if the final curtain had fallen mid-area. Police saw a tragic heart attack in an elderly man who had simply overindulged. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing a role. The role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The Vienna State Opera House stood as a masterpiece of Art Deco elegance under the 1937 night sky. Its marble facade gleamed under street lamps, reflecting perfect symmetry in every gilded line. Inside, the grand foyer carried the rich blend of expensive Worth perfume, lingering Cuban cigar smoke from the gentleman's lounge, and the delicate scent of hothouse lilies arranged in tall crystal vases along the sweeping staircase. Velvet curtains brushed softly against polished mahogany banisters as the final triumphant notes of La Traviata faded into thunderous applause. Baron Friedrich von Altenburg had claimed Box 5, the most prestigious private box overlooking the glittering stage. When the house lights rose after the curtain call, the Baron remained seated, his body unnaturally still, his head tilted at an awkward angle against the velvet upholstery. The monocle he always wore lay shattered in fragments on the deep pile carpet, the thin gold rim twisted as though crushed in a final, desperate grip. A single drop of champagne had spilled from an overturned crystal flute onto the crisp linen napkin on the small side table. The dry, sparkling aroma still hung faintly in the warm air of the enclosed box. The police inspector arrived promptly, bowing with stiff formality to the gathering crowd of society figures. "Heart failure, clearly," he announced, wiping his brow with a rough tweed handkerchief. The Baron was 72 after all. These things happen. Yet the shattered monocle caught the light like a discarded prop, its fragments sparkling ominously. Hercule Poirot, seated 3 boxes away as an honoured guest of the Austrian ambassador, tilted his egg-shaped head and observed the entire scene with sharp, gleaming green eyes. Hercule Poirot rose from his seat with deliberate grace. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his impeccably tailored sleeve using precise, small hands. "Mon ami," he murmured to his companion, "observe this stage carefully. The Baron did not merely die. He performed his final exit with an audience of one, the murderer." The inspector began to protest the intrusion, but Poirot had already stepped into the private box. The chill night air drifting from the small open balcony contrasted sharply with the lingering fire warmth radiating from a nearby radiator. He inhaled deeply, noting the mingled scents of rich leather upholstery, strong continental coffee cooling in a silver pot, and the faint trace of sandalwood cologne that still clung to the Baron's evening jacket. The suspects, the cast of this unfolding drama, began to gather in the green room just backstage. Their silk evening gowns rustled like whispered stage directions. Baroness Maria von Altenburg, the Baron's much younger and strikingly beautiful wife, dabbed at her eyes with a kid-gloved hand. Her performance of sudden grief appeared technically flawless, yet something in her posture felt too composed. Tenor Karl Bauer, the star of the evening's performance, still wore his full costume as Alfredo, stage makeup accentuating his dramatic features. Count Otto von Schiller, the Baron's longtime business rival, paced near the grand piano, his fingers drumming nervously on the polished mahogany surface. Secretary Anna Klein clutched a leather portfolio tightly to her chest, her practical rough tweed suit standing out awkwardly among the finery. Dr. Heinrich Müller, the Baron's personal physician, hovered nearby with his black medical bag, the faint scent of bitter medicine detectable on his breath. Poirot moved among them like a director surveying his troupe. "You see, but you do not observe the performance," he said softly, his voice carrying quiet authority. The grandfather clock in the grand foyer chimed 11 times, its deep resonant tones echoing over the gentle tinkling of the crystal chandelier overhead. Footsteps sounded on the parquet floors as more witnesses and servants moved through the corridors. Doors closed softly in the distance, each one marking another actor taking their place. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Baroness Maria's shoulders shook at appropriate moments, yet no single tear actually stained the delicate silk of her gown. "The mask slips. Did you catch it?" Karl Bauer's trained operatic voice still carried its resonant power, but his hands trembled slightly when he believed no one was watching. Poirot arranged 3 crystal glasses symmetrically on a nearby side table, making a small but expressive gesture with his hands. "The stage was set long before the final aria tonight," he continued. "Someone among you rehearsed this death with great care." Someone offered him hot coffee, and he accepted, savouring its rich, continental bitterness that cut cleanly through the lingering chill in the air. Outside, rain began to patter gently against the tall windows, providing a soft, rhythmic counterpoint to the distant piano music still drifting from the rehearsal rooms. The inspector cleared his throat loudly. "Monsieur Poirot, with respect, this is not one of your famous cases. It appears to be a simple medical tragedy." "Mais non," Poirot replied calmly, drawing himself up to his full, still modest height. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction. "This is the theatre of crime, Inspector. And Hercule Poirot, he is the director who will reveal every false note." He turned his attention back to the cast. Baroness Maria continued dabbing at dry eyes, her expensive Chanel perfume mixing with the wood smoke now rising from a freshly lit fireplace in the green room. Karl Bauer wiped stage sweat from his brow with a crisp linen napkin, the fabric contrasting the rough texture of the towel a stagehand offered him. Count Schiller's rough tweed jacket seemed suddenly too warm in the increasingly stuffy room, while Anna Klein's leather portfolio creaked softly as she gripped it tighter. Dr. Müller tasted a small glass of sweet liqueur offered to calm the nerve, his face remaining professionally composed. "You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands tremble when the spotlight turns inward? Ah, but you say Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me, mon ami. The careful observer, and you are becoming one, will notice how the Baroness avoids looking directly at the tenor. Consider the psychology. What role does each person here need to play tonight?" The rain intensified against the windows, cold terrace air seeping under the doors and cooling the warm drawing room. The fire crackled merrily, sending pleasant waves of warmth towards the gathered suspects. Crystal chandeliers continued their soft tinkling overhead whenever someone moved too quickly. The scent of fresh flowers battled with the heavier notes of cigar smoke and cologne. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. Every actor in this drama has a secret. Poirot, he sees behind the masks. He made another expressive gesture with his small hands, emphasizing his point. The suspects shifted uncomfortably, silk rustling, leather creaking, and footsteps echoing on the parquet as they adjusted their positions. The inspector looked increasingly uneasy. "If it is murder, Monsieur Poirot, where is the evidence beyond a broken monocle?" "The monocle itself is the evidence," Poirot answered. "It did not break by accident. It was crushed in the moment the Baron understood the truth of his final performance." The stage was alive with tension. The players had assembled under the lights. Footsteps continued to mark entrances and exits. The smell of champagne still lingered faintly from the Baron's overturned flute, now joined by the rich aroma of fresh coffee being served to steady nerves. The stage was set. The actors had taken their places. Let the drama begin. From Chapter 2, Enter the Players. The green room of the Vienna State Opera House transformed into the first formal scene of interrogation. Its walls lined with faded playbills and posters from past triumphs. The air carried the mingled scents of expensive Chanel perfume, clinging to the Baroness's wrists, lingering Cuban cigar smoke from Count Schiller's nervous puffs, and the delicate fragrance of hothouse lilies wilting slightly in their vases. Velvet curtains framed tall windows where rain continued to patter steadily, sending cold terrace air drifting into the warm interior. A fire crackled in the corner hearth, its wood smoke blending with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee being served in delicate porcelain cups. Baroness Maria von Altenburg sat gracefully on a velvet chaise longue, her silk evening gown catching soft reflections from the crystal chandelier overhead. She performed grief with the precision of a seasoned actress, dabbing repeatedly at her eyes with a lace-trimmed handkerchief. "My poor Friedrich," she sighed, her voice carrying just the right tremor. "He was so looking forward to this evening. The opera was his greatest joy." Yet the handkerchief remained suspiciously dry, and her mascara showed no telltale streaks. The soft kid gloves on her hands twisted slowly, the leather creaking like an uncertain cue in an otherwise flawless delivery. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, his green eyes gleaming with interest. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "Madame, you played the devoted wife with such elegance tonight. The role suited you beautifully. I know." He noted how her gaze occasionally flicked toward Karl Bauer before returning to the floor. The hot coffee she accepted tasted bitter on her tongue, a sharp contrast to the dry champagne that had been her husband's final drink. "Tell Poirot, during the second intermission, where exactly were you seated?" Maria's silk gown rustled as she shifted slightly, the smooth fabric sliding against the velvet upholstery. "I remained in my seat the entire time, Monsieur Poirot. I felt a slight headache and did not wish to move." Her performance flowed smoothly, rehearsed and confident. Yet the little details betrayed strain, the way her gloved fingers tightened when the question lingered. "You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands tremble ever so slightly beneath the kid gloves. The mask slips. Did you catch it? And this actor plays grief. But observe the eyes. Where is the moisture? Next to enter was Karl Bauer, the celebrated tenor still partially in costume as Alfredo. Stage makeup accentuated his handsome features, and the faint scent of sandalwood cologne trailed him like a signature aria. He stood tall, voice resonant even in speech. "I sang for the Baron many times over the years," he declared. "He was a great patron of the arts. Tonight's performance was dedicated in spirit to him." When Poirot inquired about his movements during intermission, Bauer's hands, steady enough for the most demanding high notes, began to fidget with a crisp linen napkin plucked from a nearby tray. The fabric crumpled between his fingers. After my aria in Act 2, I returned briefly to my dressing room for a quick change of collar, Bauer explained. The heat of the lights, you understand." His alibi rested on being on stage or backstage, yet the timing felt too neatly blocked. The fire's warmth made the room cozy, but a chill seemed to settle around the tenor as Poirot's questions continued. Outside, rain drummed harder on the windows, cold air seeping beneath the doors and cooling the polished parquet floor. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? Karl Bauer performs the grieving artist, loyal to his patron. But if you are hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? His voice remains trained and beautiful, yet the hands reveal the missed cue. Count Otto von Schiller arrived with purposeful strides, the aroma of fine wine still faint on his breath from an earlier toast in the lounge. His rough tweed jacket felt coarse against the smooth mahogany table he leaned upon for support. "Business rival, yes," he admitted bluntly, "but we shared many boxes in the past. Friedrich and I understood each other." He performed loyalty with a firm handshake and steady gaze, yet he avoided Baroness Maria's eyes with careful precision. The grandfather clock chimed the quarter hour, its deep tones underscoring the tension. Crystal glasses on the sideboard tinkled softly when a servant moved past. Ask yourself, why does he avoid her eyes? This actor plays old friendship and shared sorrow. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Secretary Anna Klein spoke with quiet efficiency, clutching her leather portfolio like a protective shield, and the rough tweed of her suit contrasted sharply with the silk and velvet surrounding her. She described delivering important documents to the Baron during the second act. "He seemed perfectly well when I left him," she insisted, her voice low and steady. "He even complimented the clarity of the latest financial reports." Her footsteps, Poirot noted, had echoed too deliberately on the parquet when she exited the box earlier, as though performing a carefully rehearsed departure. The smell of furniture wax on the table in box 5 still lingered in her account, mixed with the Baron's sandalwood cologne. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice the way she smoothed her sleeve exactly as one does when hiding discomfort. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Dr. Heinrich Müller completed the cast, his black medical bag resting on the cold marble sideboard. He accepted a small glass of sweet liqueur, the taste lingering on his tongue as he declared, "The Baron's heart was weak for some time. This was a natural passing, though tragic." His professional composure held firm, yet his gaze lingered a fraction too long on the Baroness. The fire crackled warmly, chasing away the chill night air that continued to drift in. Footsteps sounded softly in the corridor outside, doors closing with gentle clicks. We approached the final act. Have you identified the true performer? The spotlight of truth is about to shine. On whom will it fall? Each suspect had now delivered their opening monologue. Alibis were polished like opening night scripts, yet small contradictions hovered in the air like missed cues, and the distant sound of a champagne cork popping in an adjacent lounge felt cruelly ironic, echoing the Baron's final toast. Poirot arranged several objects on the table symmetrically: coffee cups, a crystal ashtray, a small vase of lilies, his small hands moving with precise, expressive gestures. He drew himself up, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The players have entered the stage. Each one performs their assigned role: the grieving widow, the loyal artist, the rival-turned-friend, the efficient secretary, the trusted doctor. But Hercule Poirot is not deceived by such theatre. The Baroness's silk gown rustled again as she reached for more coffee, the hot liquid steaming in the warm drawing-room. Karl Bauer's costume fabric whispered against itself when he shifted weight. Count Schiller's tweed jacket seemed suddenly constricting. Anna Klein's leather portfolio creaked once more. Dr. Muller's bag sat heavy and silent on the marble. The rain on the windows provided a constant soft percussion. The chandelier tinkled overhead with every subtle movement. The scents of perfume, cigar smoke, wood smoke, and fresh flowers wove through the room like an invisible score. Every actor had taken their mark. But who played truth? Chapter 3. The first act deeper into the night. Hercule Poirot led the uneasy cast from the green room into the Baron's private salon adjacent to the Vienna Opera House. The elegant chamber glowed under soft Art Deco wall sconces, its walls adorned with large mirrors that reflected every gesture and expression like multiple stages. The air carried the heavy scent of the Baroness's expensive Chanel perfume, the fresh wood smoke rising from a newly lit fire in the marble fireplace, and the faint sweet trace of hothouse lilies wilting in a crystal vase on the side table. Velvet curtains framed the tall windows, where rain continued its steady patter, sending chill night air drifting into the warm drawing-room. Poirot moved with the authority of a director shaping the second scene. He pressed gently yet relentlessly on alibis, watching each performance strain under the growing spotlight of his questions. Baroness Maria von Altenburg sat near the fire, her silk blouse now replacing the evening gown, yet the same kid gloves remained on her hands. "I remained in my seat the entire intermission," she repeated, voice carefully modulated. "A slight headache kept me from moving." But when Poirot mentioned a cloakroom attendant who recalled her distinctive Worth perfume trailing through the corridor near Box 5, her shoulders stiffened. The silk rustled loudly as she shifted, the texture betraying a sudden unease against the smooth crystal glass of water she held. A mask slipped. Maria had claimed perfect stillness in her seat, yet the witness placed her silhouette near the Baron's box during the critical minutes. The first revelation landed with the quiet finality of a dropped cue. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he observed the Baroness's hands tighten on the glass. He applied the director method with precision. The performance. She weeps, yes. The handkerchief, it dabs at the eyes. The shoulders, they shake appropriately. The tell, but observe, the handkerchief remains dry. The mascara does not run. The performance of grief, it is technically perfect. Too perfect. The psychology. I am reminded of the Ackroyd affair, where a man performed shock so convincingly that even I, Hercule Poirot, was momentarily deceived. He had rehearsed in mirrors, practiced the widening of eyes, the dropping of the jaw. But he made one error. He reached for his cigarette case too steadily. A man truly shocked does not have steady hands. The body, it knows the truth even when the face lies. This is what the little grey cells understand, the psychology beneath the performance. The truth. Therefore, this woman knew of the death before she was told. Her grief is costume, not feeling. You see it now, no? The theatre crumbles. The cast murmured in discomfort. Karl Bauer's face paled beneath the remnants of his stage makeup, his resonant tenor voice faltering for the first time as he gripped the edge of a polished mahogany chair. Count Otto von Schiller's confident stride shortened to an uneasy shuffle across the parquet floor, his rough tweed jacket suddenly too warm in the firelit room. Secretary Anna Klein clutched her leather portfolio tighter, the material creaking under her fingers. Dr. Heinrich Müller's black bag seemed heavier as he set it down on the cold marble sideboard. His face professionally blank, yet his eyes betraying calculation. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. We approach the final act. Have you identified the true performer? The spotlight of truth is about to shine. On whom will it fall? Ask yourself, why does the Baroness avoid meeting the tenor's eyes now? Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. The first act has begun in earnest. Alibis that once flowed so smoothly now show their seams. He arranged 3 crystal glasses symmetrically on the table, the faint tinkling of the chandelier accompanying the movement. The hot coffee offered earlier had grown lukewarm, its rich aroma still cutting through the wood smoke and lingering cologne. Karl Bauer attempted to recover his performance. I was in my dressing room adjusting my costume. The heat of the lights demands quick changes. Yet his hands, steady on stage for demanding arias, now trembled visibly when he reached for a crisp linen napkin. The fire crackled warmly, chasing the chill night air. Oh, but a different cold seemed to settle over the tenor. Outside, rain drummed insistently on the windows, a relentless rhythm underscoring the strained dialogue. Count Schiller performed indignation with raised voice. This is outrageous, questioning us as if we were common criminals. His fine wine-scented breath carried across the room, but the way he avoided the Baroness's gaze remained a missed cue. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed softly, its tones echoing over the parquet footsteps as servants moved discreetly in the background. Doors closed with gentle clicks, marking the exits of minor players. The Baroness's silk blouse rustled again as she reached for her handkerchief once more. Friedrich's monocle. He treasured it. He used it to watch every detail of the performance. Her voice held steady, but the kid gloves twisted tighter. Poirot noted the cold marble of the fireplace contrasting the fire's warmth, much like the contrast between her performed grief and the dry eyes. Dr. Müller spoke with medical authority, tasting a small sip of sweet liqueur to steady himself. The Baron's heart was fragile. Digitalis had been prescribed in small doses for years. Yet when pressed on the position of the shattered monocle, too far from the body for a simple collapse, his composure flickered. The scent of bitter medicine clung faintly to his bag, mixing with the fresh flowers and furniture wax. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how the performances grow strained. Bravo! But the performance, it was not convincing. The careful observer will notice the small hesitations, the glances that dart away, the hands that betray what the voice denies. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, green eyes gleaming. Order and method, mes amis. That is what reveals the truth behind the masks. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, then drew himself up to his full, still small, height. The rain on the windows provided a soft percussion, while the distant piano music from rehearsal rooms drifted like an ironic underscore. The warm drawing room felt increasingly close, the fire's heat pressing against the chill seeping from the terrace doors. The cast shifted uncomfortably. Silk rustled, leather creaked, tweed scratched, and crystal tinkled with every nervous movement. The psychology pressed forward, greed performing as grief, fear performing as confidence, love performing as indifference. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. A reflection, integrated to reach approximately 1,000 words total. In this first act of our Vienna drama, the Baroness performed widowhood with the elegance of a prima donna, yet the dry handkerchief and the witness's sighting revealed the costume beneath the tears. Humans wear masks because society demands flawless performances. Grief must appear wet-eyed and broken, loyalty firm and unwavering, innocence wide and untroubled. The Baroness needed the role of grieving wife to secure the fortune and continue her hidden affair. Why do we perform rather than live truthfully? Fear of judgment, greed dressed as sorrow, obsession masked as devotion, hate performing as loyalty. The little grey cells detect the gap between the rehearsed gesture and the genuine tremor of the soul. The body cannot sustain the lie indefinitely. It betrays through dry eyes, through steady hands where shaking is required, and glances that avoid the truth. I recall the case of the Veiled Lady in 1925, where a woman performed innocence so flawlessly that Scotland Yard nearly closed the file. She wore heavy black veils, spoke in hushed, trembling whispers, arranged fresh lilies with delicate shaking fingers, and shed a single perfect tear at the inquest. Her silk mourning gowns rustled with every calculated sigh. Yet Poirot noticed she never once touched the victim's photograph on the mantelpiece. True mourning reaches instinctively for the image of the lost. She had rehearsed the lowered lashes, the soft sobs, even the way she clutched her kid gloves. But the body betrays. Her pulse remained steady and calm, when a genuine widow would have fainted from shock. And the psychology of performance is this. The actor forgets that the true audience of one watches the hands, the breathing, the small unconscious gestures, not merely the grand theatrical face. She had poisoned her husband for the insurance money, masking cold greed as widow's weeds and devoted sorrow. In the end, the veil tore away under Poirot's gentle but relentless questioning, and truth stepped forward into the light. The mirror she avoided finally reflected her real face. The universal truth about deception is that every actor eventually forgets their lines under sustained spotlight. The mask feels natural and comfortable until the heat of truth begins to melt its edges. In this grand opera house of crime, the first crack has appeared in the Baroness's perfect performance. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. Watch not only the sweeping gestures and tearful monologues, but the small hesitations between the lines, the dry eyes in a flood of supposed grief, the hands that remain too steady. The theatre of life and crime rewards only the careful observer who sees behind the masks. Truth does not rehearse. Truth simply is. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. The following morning, Hercule Poirot gathered the cast once more in the Baron's private salon within the Vienna Opera House. Sunlight slanted through the tall Art Deco windows, illuminating polished mahogany tables and casting long reflections in the large wall mirrors. The air was rich with the aroma of strong continental coffee, freshly brewed in silver pots, mingling with lingering furniture wax, the faint sweetness of hothouse lilies, and the wood smoke from a fire rekindled against the morning chill. Velvet curtains had been drawn back, allowing cold terrace air to drift in and contrast the warm drawing room. Poirot stood at the centre like a director tightening the script. He tested alibis with precise, unrelenting pressure, watching each rehearsed line begin to fray under scrutiny. Baroness Maria von Altenburg sat near the fireplace, her day dress of fine silk replacing the previous night's gown. She still wore the kid gloves, fingers twisting the soft leather as she repeated her story. I remained in my seat during both intermissions. The headache was quite severe. Her voice flowed smoothly at first, but when Poirot introduced the cloakroom attendant who clearly remembered her distinctive Worth perfume passing near box 5, Maria's shoulders tensed visibly, and the silk of her blouse rustled sharply as she reached for her coffee cup. The hot liquid tasted metallic on her tongue, nerves sharpening every sensation. Poirot adjusted his moustache with precision and tilted his egg-shaped head. "Rehearsed too well, madame. The perfume trail tells its own story." He made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "The performance of stillness is cracking." Karl Bauer entered the salon still carrying traces of stage presence, though his costume had been exchanged for a simple, dark suit. The scent of sandalwood cologne clung to him, now mixed with the nervous sweat of the morning. "I returned to my dressing room immediately after my aria," he insisted, voice resonant yet edged with strain. "The collar needed changing, the lights were merciless." Poirot pressed on the exact timing. Bauer's hands, once rock-steady for the most demanding passages, now fidgeted with a crisp linen napkin, crumpling the fabric repeatedly. The fire crackled warmly, sending pleasant waves of heat, but the tenor's face grew pale against the chill air seeping from the terrace doors. Footsteps echoed on the parquet as a servant delivered more coffee, the crystal chandelier tinkling softly overhead. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Observe this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The tenor sings beautifully of innocence, yet the hands reveal the missed cue. Count Otto von Schiller paced the room with forced confidence, his rough tweed jacket rasping against the polished mahogany table he occasionally leaned upon. The aroma of fine wine from the previous evening still lingered faintly on his breath. "This interrogation is an insult," he declared, performing indignation with raised voice and firm gestures. "Friedrich and I were rivals in business, yes, but never enemies." Yet when Poirot revealed documents showing Schiller's substantial debts to the Baron, debts that would conveniently vanish with the Baron's death, Schiller's stride shortened. His hands trembled slightly as he accepted a cup of hot coffee, the rich taste turning bitter in his mouth. The grandfather clock chimed the half-hour, its deep tones underscoring the growing strain. Rain from the night before had left the terrace damp, and cold air continued to creep in, cooling the warm room. Ask yourself, why does the Count's loyalty performance falter when money is mentioned? Too perfect at first, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles when pressure mounts. Lies flow smooth only until the script fails. Secretary Anna Klein sat rigidly, clutching her leather portfolio like a shield. Her practical rough tweed suit seemed even more out of place in the elegant salon. She spoke with quiet efficiency. "I delivered the financial papers to the Baron during the second act. He reviewed them briefly and seemed in perfect health." Poirot gently exposed the altered ledgers hidden within the portfolio. Figures changed to conceal irregular payments. Anna's voice remained steady at first, but her fingers tightened on the leather until it creaked. The smooth crystal glass she held felt icy against her palm, contrasting the fire's warmth. The scent of furniture wax on the tables mixed with the strong coffee aroma, while distant piano music drifted from rehearsal rooms like an ironic backdrop. As the careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how she smooths her sleeve when discomfort rises. Bravo! But the performance, it was not convincing. Watch this actor play the helpful secretary. The mask begins to slip. Dr. Heinrich Müller hovered near the cold marble sideboard, his black medical bag resting heavily beside a vase of lilies. He tasted a small glass of sweet liqueur, offered to steady nerves, the flavour lingering on his tongue. The Baron suffered from a weak heart for years, he pronounced with professional calm. Digitalis was part of his regimen. A sudden failure is not unexpected. Yet when Poirot confronted him with the position of the shattered monocle, lying too far from the body for a natural collapse, and the precise dosage that could mimic heart failure, Müller's composure flickered. His gaze darted toward the Baroness before returning to the floor. Footsteps sounded softly in the corridor outside, doors closing with gentle clicks as minor witnesses were dismissed. Poirot drew himself up to his full, still small, height, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. He arranged several objects on the table symmetrically: coffee cups, a crystal ashtray, and a small silver spoon. Rehearsed lines, mes amis. Each of you prepared your script with care. The widow remains seated. The tenor changes collars. The rival shares old friendship. The secretary delivers papers. The doctor diagnoses weakness, all so neatly blocked. But the alibis now collided like poorly timed scenes. Maria's perfume trail contradicted her stillness. Bauer's dressing room timing overlapped impossibly with witnessed movements. Schiller's debts provided clear motive. Klein's ledgers showed hidden transactions. Müller's medical opinion crumbled when faced with the physical evidence of the monocle's position and the poison's trace. The rain had stopped, but cold terrace air still seeped in, making the fire's warmth more welcome. Silk rustled as Maria shifted uncomfortably. Tweed scratched as Schiller paced. Leather creaked in Anna's grip. The chandelier tinkled with every nervous movement. The smell of wood smoke, coffee, and fading flowers filled the salon. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and made another expressive gesture with his small hands. The psychology, it is everything. Greed performs as grief. Fear performs as confidence. Love performs as indifference. But the body cannot rehearse forever. The hands tremble, the eyes avoid. The voice cracks when the script fails. The cast grew visibly strained. Maria's dry eyes now showed the first hint of real moisture. Not grief, but fear. Bauer's resonant voice lost some of its power. Schiller's indignation turned defensive. Klein's efficiency became hesitant. Müller's professionalism developed cracks. We approached the final act. Have you identified the true performer? The spotlight of truth grows brighter. On whom will it fall? Rehearsed lines faltered. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The mask slips. In the Baron's private salon once more, the afternoon light filtered through the tall Art Deco windows, casting golden patterns across the polished mahogany tables and large mirrors. The air held the lingering scent of the Baroness's Chanel perfume, mixed with fresh wood smoke from the fireplace, a strong continental coffee cooling in silver pots, and the delicate fragrance of hothouse lilies beginning to wilt. Velvet curtains framed the scene, while cold terrace air drifted in from the slightly open doors, contrasting the warm drawing room. Poirot had asked the others to wait outside, leaving only Baroness Maria von Altenburg alone with him under the spotlight. He placed the shattered monocle fragments carefully on the small table between them, the broken gold rim glinting like a discarded prop. "Madame," Poirot began quietly, tilting his egg-shaped head, "you visited Box 5 during the second intermission. The monocle saw you." His green eyes gleamed with quiet intensity as he adjusted his moustache with precision. Maria's face remained composed for a moment longer, her silk daydress rustling softly as she reached for her handkerchief. "I told you, I stayed in my seat. The headache—" Her voice faltered as Poirot gently laid out the cloakroom attendant's statement and the faint trail of her Worth perfume near the box. The kid gloves on her hands twisted tighter, the soft leather creaking. The hot coffee she had been sipping suddenly tasted bitter and cold on her tongue. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "The performance was magnificent, madame. The grieving widow so perfectly played. But the monocle, it did not lie." He drew himself up to his full, still small, height. "You poured the digitalis into his champagne while he watched the stage through it. He saw you. In that final moment of astonishment, he crushed the monocle in his hand." The mask slipped completely. Maria's shoulders began to shake, not with the rehearsed, elegant tremors of earlier, but with raw, uncontrolled emotion. Tears came at last, real tears that streaked her mascara in black rivulets down her cheeks. The silk of her blouse clung damply as she clutched the velvet curtain beside her chair, the fabric rough against her palms. "He knew about Karl," she whispered, her voice stripped of all rehearsal, hoarse and broken. "He was going to disinherit me completely, cut me off without a penny. I only wanted freedom, a life with Karl, the opera, the travel, the love I deserved." Her hands, once gloved and steady in perfect widow's performance, now trembled violently as genuine terror replaced the composed poise. The chill night air, still lingering from the terrace, made her shiver despite the fire's warmth crackling nearby, and the grandfather clock chimed softly in the distance, its tones echoing over the parquet floor like a final curtain warning. Crystal glasses on the side table tinkled faintly when she reached for support. The mask had fallen. Beneath the elegant society wife lay obsession twisted into desperation, love performing as indifference for years until it could no longer hold. Poirot watched the real feeling emerge, relief mixed with crushing guilt, the hate she had masked as loyalty for so long finally breaking free. "Observe, mon ami," Poirot said softly, as though addressing an invisible audience. "This is the moment the actor forgets every line. The psychology, it reveals itself when the costume is torn away." He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. You performed devotion for 18 months while planning this exit." The digitalis came from Dr. Muller, discreetly supplied. Karl waited in the dressing room, ready for the new life. But the Baron saw you through the monocle. That single glance shattered everything, literally. Maria collapsed forward, sobbing openly now, the sound raw and unpolished. No elegant dabbing with dry handkerchiefs. The tears flowed freely, staining the silk and the crisp linen napkin she clutched. The scent of her perfume grew stronger with the heat of emotion, mingling with wood smoke and the faint bitter medicine trace from the poison's memory. Footsteps sounded outside the salon doors as the other suspects waited anxiously, doors closing softly with tense clicks. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Maria had tried, how she had tried, with perfect tears that never came, and steady hands that never shook. But the body knows. The eyes that once avoided now flooded with truth. The hands that once twisted gloves in rehearsal now clutched curtains in genuine collapse. Poirot tilted his head, making another expressive gesture. The crucial psychological insight is this, madame. You wore the mask of the perfect wife so long that you believed it yourself. Greed performed as grief. Obsession performed as love. But when the Baron threatened to expose the affair and rewrite the will, the performance could no longer sustain. The monocle captured the exact moment the role ended, your hand pouring the poison, his eyes widening in horror. Maria looked up, face streaked and bare, all society elegance stripped away. I didn't mean for him to suffer. I only wanted him gone quietly. A heart attack, they would say. No scandal. Her voice cracked completely, the trained poise of the Baroness replaced by the raw tremor of a woman who had finally forgotten her lines. The tension in the room peaked like the crescendo before a final aria. The fire crackled louder, sending sparks dancing against the cold marble fireplace. Cold terrace air seeped in stronger now, cooling the warm drawing room and raising gooseflesh on Maria's arms. The distant piano music from the rehearsal rooms had fallen silent, as if the entire opera house held its breath. Poirot arranged the monocle fragments symmetrically on the table one last time, his small hands moving with deliberate order and method. The mask had fallen, beneath it the true face at last, relief at freedom. Oh, guilt at the method, obsession for the tenor that drove you to murder. Outside the salon, the other actors stirred restlessly. Karl Bauer's voice could be heard murmuring in low panic. Count Schiller paced with heavy footsteps on the parquet. Anna Klein's leather portfolio creaked as she clutched it tighter. Dr. Muller's bag shifted with nervous weight. Watch this performance carefully. The mask slips. Did you catch every fracture? The spotlight of truth has found its target. The actor who played innocence so convincingly now stands exposed. Maria's sobbing quieted into exhausted, ragged breaths. The silk dress clung to her, damp with real emotion rather than rehearsed sorrow. The kid gloves lay discarded on the floor like abandoned props. For the first time since the curtain rose on this tragedy, and the Baroness appeared without any role to play. The mask had fallen. The true face emerged. Chapter 6. Behind the Curtain. Hercule Poirot drew the entire cast together, once again in the dimly lit backstage labyrinth of the Vienna Opera House. Gas lamps flickered softly along the narrow corridors, casting dramatic shadows across faded scenery flats and coiled ropes. The air carried the heavy scent of lingering Cuban cigar smoke from Count Schiller's nervous puffs. The sweet liqueur Dr. Muller sipped to steady his shaking hands, expensive Chanel perfumes still clinging to Baroness Maria's skin, and the faint wood smoke drifting from a small stove in one of the dressing rooms. Rough wooden floors creaked underfoot, contrasting the earlier polished parquet, while velvet costumes hung like silent witnesses on nearby racks. The cold air seeped through cracks in the old walls, making the warm pockets near the lamps feel even more intimate. With Maria's mask already fallen, Poirot began to pull back the final curtains on the hidden connections. Mes amis, the performance on stage was only the public show. Now we go backstage, where the real drama was rehearsed. He tilted his egg-shaped head, green eyes gleaming as he arranged a few scattered props. a broken monocle fragment, a small vial, and a crumpled note, symmetrically on an old mahogany prop table. Karl Bauer stood pale beneath the flickering light, his hands no longer trembling but clenched tightly at his sides. The scent of sandalwood cologne mixed with nervous sweat. "It was love," he whispered hoarsely. "Maria and I. We met during rehearsals 18 months ago. The Baron kept her like a beautiful ornament. She deserved more. Travel, passion, the life of an artist's muse." His voice, once resonant with operatic power, now sounded thin and stripped. The rough texture of a nearby rope brushed his sleeve as he shifted, the silk of his remaining costume rustling softly. Maria sat on a worn velvet chaise dragged from a dressing room, her face still streaked from earlier tears, mascara long ruined. "Karl gave me what Friedrich never could," she admitted, voice raw. "Freedom from the cage of that marriage. The digitalis came in small, careful doses, enough to mimic heart failure. Dr. Müller supplied it discreetly for a price." She clutched a crisp linen napkin, now damp and twisted, the fabric soft against her cold palms, and the chill backstage air raised goose flesh on her arms despite the nearby stove's warmth. Dr. Heinrich Müller wiped his brow with a rough tweed handkerchief, the black medical bag at his feet suddenly looking like incriminating evidence. "I only provided what was requested," he said defensively, tasting the sweet liqueur again to calm his nerves. The Baron's heart was genuinely weak. A little extra digitalis, it would look natural. His gaze darted between Maria and Karl, the bitter medicine scent still faint on his breath. Footsteps echoed in the narrow corridors as stagehands moved discreetly in the distance, doors closing softly on old secrets. Count Otto von Schiller leaned against a scenery flat, his rough tweed jacket scraping the painted canvas. My debts to the Baron were crushing," he confessed with a bitter laugh that lacked any performance. "Friedrich held the notes. With him gone, they would pass to more lenient hands, or disappear in the confusion of inheritance." The aroma of fine wine had faded, replaced by the acrid trace of cigar smoke he exhaled heavily. The grandfather clock somewhere in the main building chimed distantly, its tones muffled by the backstage walls. Secretary Anna Klein stood apart, clutching her leather portfolio like a final shield. The rough tweed of her suit felt coarse and real in this hidden world. "I knew about the affair," she said quietly. "I altered the ledgers to hide the payments to Dr. Müller and the discreet transfers to Karl's account. In return, Maria promised me a share once the fortune was settled." Her voice held no dramatic flair now, only exhausted honesty. The smooth crystal glass she had held earlier was gone. Instead, her fingers traced the cold metal edge of a prop candlestick. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands, drawing everyone's attention. Behind the curtain, the true relationships emerge. Love masking obsession, loyalty masking resentment, helpfulness masking complicity, greed performing as friendship. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, then smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. The flickering gas lamps cast shifting shadows, making every face look momentarily like actors caught mid-scene. The scent of fresh flowers from a forgotten bouquet in one dressing room battled with the heavier cigar smoke and cologne, and hidden letters were produced, singed at the edges from Maria's attempt to burn them in the salon fireplace the night before. The paper crackled as Poirot unfolded one, the ink still legible with plans, promises, and coded references to the final performance. footsteps continued to echo softly in the labyrinthine corridors, a constant reminder that the opera house itself was listening. A distant piano note sounded from a rehearsal room, lonely and unfinished. The polished elegance of the public boxes and green room had given way to this cluttered backstage reality. Coiled ropes rough against silk costumes, cold draughts against warm lamps, the smell of dust and old wood mixing with expensive perfume. Maria's silk dress, once pristine, now showed wrinkles and damp patches from real tears. Karl's hands, steady on stage, fidgeted with a kid glove discarded earlier. Schiller's confident stride had become a restless pacing on the creaking floorboards. Anna's efficiency had dissolved into quiet resignation. Dr. Muller's professional bag lay open, revealing the small vial that had delivered the fatal dose. Poirot arranged the evidence symmetrically on the prop table. The monocle fragments, the singed letters, the vial. Every secret has now been exposed. The Baron discovered the affair and threatened complete disinheritance during the second intermission. That was the cue for the final act. Maria acted while the tenor provided the poison through the doctor. The secretary covered the financial trail. The Count waited for the debts to vanish. A perfectly rehearsed ensemble, until the monocle captured the truth. The tension backstage felt thicker than any velvet curtain. Cold air seeped stronger now, making the small stove's warmth a fragile comfort. Crystal chandeliers were far away. Here, only gas lamps flickered and hissed. The rain from earlier had left dampness in the air, adding a chill that no fire could fully chase. Reflection. Behind the curtain of this grand opera house, the motives danced like shadows in the wings. The Baroness wore the mask of the devoted wife for years, while her heart belonged entirely to the tenor. The doctor performed medical loyalty while quietly supplying poison. The secretary played the efficient helper while altering truth in the ledgers, and the Count performed old rivalry, softened by friendship while counting the minutes until his debts died with the Baron. Humans wear masks because the truth is too dangerous to reveal under society's bright lights. Greed must dress as grief, obsession as love, complicity as innocence. Society applauds the polished performance even when the soul whispers hatred and fear. Consider the case of the Italian nobleman aboard the Orient Express in 1932. A count performed grief for his murdered wife with such refined elegance that fellow passengers offered sincere condolences throughout the journey. He arranged fresh flowers daily in her compartment, spoke in hushed, trembling tones at every meal, and shed a single perfect tear during the improvised funeral service in the dining car. His black silk mourning attire rustled with every calculated sigh, and he carried a small portrait of her that he gazed upon with seemingly endless sorrow. Yet Poirot noticed he never once entered her locked compartment after the discovery of the body. True mourning returns obsessively to the scene of loss. He had rehearsed the lowered voice, the steady yet emotional hands, even the way he dabbed at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. But the body betrays what the face conceals. His appetite remained hearty at dinner while claiming a broken heart, and his pulse stayed calm when shown the blood-stained evidence. The psychology. He had strangled his wife for the insurance fortune, and the younger lover waiting in Venice. The mask slipped fatally when he reached too quickly and steadily for the telegram announcing his freedom, and the little grey cells saw through the performance because the hands told the truth the voice tried to hide. The universal truth is that backstage is where every performance is truly prepared and where it ultimately collapses. Every secret breeds a motive, Every motive demands its mask, yet no mask survives the sustained spotlight of truth. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. The curtain hides more than scenery and ropes. It conceals the human heart in all its messy contradictions. Look carefully behind it, and truth, stripped of all costume, takes its final bow. Behind every curtain, a secret, every secret, a motive. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The grand foyer of the Vienna State Opera House had been transformed into the ultimate stage for revelation. Crystal chandeliers blazed like spotlights, and their light dancing across polished marble floors and gilded Art Deco mirrors. The air carried the rich aroma of strong continental coffee served in silver pots, faint wood smoke from a nearby hearth, expensive Worth perfume still clinging to the Baroness, and the sharp trace of Cuban cigar smoke from Count Schiller's final nervous puffs. Velvet curtains had been drawn back from the tall windows, allowing cold terrace air to drift in and contrast the warm drawing-room atmosphere. A grandfather clock stood sentinel in the corner, its deep chimes marking the hour like a dramatic underscore. Poirot had assembled the entire cast under the glittering lights. Baroness Maria von Altenburg sat pale and stripped of poise, her silk dress wrinkled and mascara-streaked. Karl Bauer stood beside her, no longer in costume, but exposed as the lover. Count Otto von Schiller paced restlessly, his rough tweed jacket rumpled. Secretary Anna Klein clutched her leather portfolio with white-knuckled fingers. Dr. Heinrich Müller hovered near the cold marble sideboard, his black medical bag looking like a guilty prop. All eyes turned to Hercule Poirot as he stepped into the centre of the foyer, drawing himself up to his full, still small, height. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice carrying the authority of a master director addressing his troupe on opening night. "You have each performed for Poirot. Some truthfully, some not. Let us review the performances, shall we?" He made an expressive gesture with his small hands, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction, as he touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. The chandelier tinkled softly overhead with the subtle movement of air. Her footsteps on the parquet had fallen silent. Only the crackling fire and distant rain on windows provided sound. "Baroness Maria von Altenburg, you played the grieving widow with technical brilliance. The handkerchief dabbing at dry eyes, the shoulders shaking at precisely the right moments, the elegant sighs, magnifique. But the grief, it was costume, not feeling. The handkerchief remained dry, the mascara never ran. A cloakroom attendant remembered your Worth perfume near box 5 during the second intermission. And the monocle. The monocle saw you pour the digitalis into your husband's champagne while he watched the stage. You knew of the death before anyone told you. Your performance was perfect, too perfect." Maria lowered her head, fresh tears, real ones, sliding down her cheeks, and the silk of her dress rustled as her hands trembled openly now. "Karl Bauer, you performed the loyal friend and devoted artist, the resonant voice praising the Baron, the quick costume change alibi. But loyalty does not lie about timing. Your dressing room visit overlapped with Maria's movements. You supplied the digitalis through Dr. Müller, dreaming of a new life with your lover. The tenor who sang so beautifully on stage sang false notes off stage." Bauer's face drained of colour. His hands, once steady for high notes, now shook visibly. The scent of sandalwood cologne seemed suddenly too strong in the warm room. "Count Otto von Schiller, your role was the innocent business rival turned reluctant mourner. You performed old friendship with firm handshakes, and shared memories. Yet innocent rivals do not celebrate erased debts with champagne in the lounge while the body is still warm. Your financial motives were clear. The notes the Baron held would vanish with his death. Schiller stopped pacing, his rough tweed jacket suddenly feeling constricting. He avoided everyone's eyes, the fine wine aroma long gone, replaced by nervous sweat. Fräulein Anna Klein, you played the helpful, efficient secretary. Quiet, loyal, always with your leather portfolio at hand. Yet helpful secretaries do not alter ledgers to hide irregular payments to the doctor or secret transfers to the tenor. You knew of the affair and stayed silent for a promised share of the fortune. Anna's grip tightened on the portfolio until the leather creaked. Her practical tweed suit seemed smaller under the bright lights. And Dr. Muller, or the trusted physician. You performed concern and medical authority so convincingly. The Baron's heart was weak, you said. But trusted physicians do not supply extradigitalis to mimic a natural heart attack. Your bag held the means, and your silence held the secret. Müller's face paled. He set his sweet liqueur glass down on the cold marble with a soft clink, the taste now bitter in his mouth. Poirot arranged 3 crystal glasses symmetrically on a nearby table, his small hands moving with precise order and method. The fire crackled warmly, chasing the chill terrace air. The chandelier continued its gentle tinkling. And so we come to our leading performer, Baroness Maria von Altenburg. He drew himself up again, voice rising like the crescendo of a final aria. You gave the most convincing performance of all. The shock, the outrage, the helpful cooperation in the green room. Magnifique! The elegant widow, so composed, so tragic, but you made one fatal error. One small moment when the mask slipped completely. Poirot pointed to the shattered monocle fragments displayed on a velvet cushion like a crucial prop. The Baron saw you through his monocle as you poured the poison. In that instant of horror, he crushed it in his hand. That single glance captured the truth. The performance of the devoted wife ended the moment he understood your obsession with Karl and your greed for freedom and fortune. Maria broke completely, sobbing without restraint. He was going to cut me off, leave me with nothing. I couldn't live that way anymore. The curtain falls, Poirot continued, his green eyes shining. The psychology, it is everything. Greed performed as grief. Love performed as indifference. Hate performed as loyalty. But the body cannot rehearse forever. The dry eyes betrayed you first. The steady hands when they should have shaken. The perfume trail. The altered ledgers. The singed letters backstage. All the small tells that the little grey cells collected. The cast stood frozen under the spotlight of truth. Silk rustled as Maria trembled. Tweed scratched as Schiller shifted. Leather creaked in Anna's hands. The cold marble felt icy against Dr. Muller's palm as he steadied himself. Poirot made one final expressive gesture, drawing the entire scene together. The performance is over. The masks have been removed. The theatre of crime has revealed its single truth. Every actor eventually forgets their lines. Maria von Altenburg, you are the murderer. The others enabled or benefited, but you delivered the fatal dose. Officers waiting in the wings stepped forward. Handcuffs clicked like the final snap of a closing curtain. Maria rose unsteadily, her face bare and broken, no more roles left to play. Karl's tenor voice failed him entirely. The others stood stripped of pretense, futures suddenly uncertain under the bright chandeliers. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. curtain call. The morning light streamed through the tall Art Deco windows of the Vienna Opera House, turning the grand foyer into a stage stripped of its nighttime glamour. Crystal chandeliers hung dim and silent now, their earlier sparkle replaced by the pale glow of reality. The air still carried faint traces of the previous night's drama, lingering wood smoke from the hearth, in the rich aroma of strong continental coffee served to steady shaken nerves. Expensive Chanel perfume clinging stubbornly to Baroness Maria's wrinkled silk dress, and the acrid scent of Cuban cigar smoke that Count Schiller had finally abandoned. Cold terrace air drifted in freely through open doors, chasing away the warm drawing-room comfort of the night before. The polished marble floors echoed with purposeful footsteps as officers moved about their duties. Justice arrived with quiet efficiency, like stagehands clearing the set after the final curtain. Maria von Altenburg stood in the center of the foyer, hands already bound in cold metal handcuffs that clicked with merciless finality. Her once elegant silk dress hung limp and stained with real tears, the kid gloves long discarded on the floor like forgotten props, though the mask of the grieving widow had been completely stripped away, leaving only a pale, exhausted woman whose face showed every line of guilt and relief mixed together. She no longer dabbed at dry eyes with rehearsed grace. The tears flowed freely now, streaking her cheeks without performance. Karl Bauer stood nearby, his handsome tenor features drained of all dramatic power. No stage makeup remained to hide the pallor. His hands, once steady for soaring arias, trembled openly as officers prepared to escort him as an accessory. The scent of sandalwood cologne seemed faded and pathetic in the cold morning light. It was love, he whispered one last time, but the words sounded hollow, even to his own ears. Love that had performed indifference while planning murder. Count Otto von Schiller leaned heavily against a polished mahogany table, his rough tweed jacket rumpled and damp from nervous sweat. The confident stride of the rival had vanished, replaced by a defeated shuffle on the parquet floor. His debts might eventually be settled through legal channels, but the stain of complicity would follow him far longer than any financial relief. He avoided everyone's eyes, the fine wine aroma of earlier celebrations, replaced by the bitter taste of regret lingering on his tongue from the coffee he barely touched. Secretary Anna Klein sat rigidly on a velvet chaise, her leather portfolio finely taken as evidence. The practical rough tweed of her suit offered no protection now. Her efficient, helpful role had dissolved into quiet resignation. She had altered ledgers and hidden payments, hoping for a share of the fortune. Instead, she faced charges of conspiracy and fraud. All her fingers, once steady on documents, now traced invisible patterns on the cold marble armrest, the chill seeping through her skin. Dr. Heinrich Müller stood apart near the cold marble sideboard, his black medical bag confiscated and sealed. The trusted physician who had supplied the digitalis performed no more authority. His face appeared older in the harsh daylight, the faint scent of bitter medicine still clinging to his clothes like an accusation. He sipped the last of his sweet liqueur mechanically, the taste turning to ash in his mouth as officers read the charges. Poirot moved among them like a director overseeing the final clearing of the stage. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve with precise fingers and touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. His green eyes gleamed, not with triumph, but with the quiet satisfaction of a man who had restored order and method to chaos. "The curtain call has come," he said softly, making an expressive gesture with his small hands. "No more roles to play, no more masks to hide behind. The theatre empties, and only truth remains." Maria lifted her head one final time, her voice raw and unpolished. "I didn't want him to suffer. I only wanted to be free." The words carried no dramatic flair, no rehearsed tremor, just the exhausted honesty of a woman whose performance had collapsed completely. The cold terrace air made her shiver in her thin silk dress, contrasting the fire's dying warmth in the hearth. The officers began the formal process with quiet professionalism. Handcuffs clicked again as Carl was secured beside Maria. Footsteps on the parquet marked their slow procession toward the waiting vehicles outside. The grandfather clock chimed 10, its deep tones echoing through the now quiet foyer, like a final, solemn bow. Crystal glasses from the night before still sat on side tables, some overturned like the Baron's fatal champagne flute. "You watch with Poirot, no? See how the actors stand stripped of their costumes. The Baroness who played grief so elegantly now weeps without rehearsal. The tenor whose voice once filled the house speaks in broken whispers. The rival's confidence has crumbled. The secretary's efficiency has failed. The doctor's authority has dissolved. The psychology reveals itself most clearly when the spotlight dims and the masks fall away." Poirot arranged 3 crystal glasses symmetrically on a nearby table one last time, and restoring small order to the scene. The smell of fresh flowers had faded, leaving only the faint wood smoke and coffee. Rain from earlier had left the terrace damp, and cold air continued to drift in, cooling the warm remnants of the night's drama. Count Schiller was the first to break the heavy silence beyond the formal charges. "I never thought it would come to this," he muttered, his voice lacking any performed indignation. "Just business, old scores." But the words rang false, even to him. The theatre of crime allowed no final excuses. Anna Klein spoke quietly as she rose. "I only wanted security, a better life." Her rough tweed suit suddenly seemed too heavy, too real. No more hiding behind ledgers and promises. Dr. Müller offered no defense, merely nodding as the officers took his arm, and the black bag that had once symbolized healing now symbolized betrayal. Maria turned toward Poirot before leaving, her eyes meeting his without any remaining mask. "You saw everything, didn't you? From the very first moment." "Mais oui," Poirot replied gently. Hercule Poirot sees behind the masks. The body cannot lie when the performance ends. The dry eyes, the steady hands, the perfume trail, the singed letters backstage, all told their story. The procession moved toward the grand entrance. Footsteps echoed on the marble, doors closing softly behind them, with a finality that felt like the last page of a script being turned. Outside, the Vienna morning continued. Carriages and early pedestrians unaware of the drama that had unfolded within these elegant walls. The opera house itself seemed to breathe easier, or as if the stage had been cleared for a new production free of murder. No applause greeted the departing cast. No curtain calls with bows and flowers. Only the quiet machinery of justice turning, slow and inexorable. The Baron's fortune would pass to distant relatives, untarnished by the conspiracy. The opera season would resume, but Box 5 would remain empty for a long time, a silent reminder of the performance that had ended in truth rather than triumph. Poirot stood alone for a moment in the foyer after the others had gone. He tilted his egg-shaped head, green eyes reflecting on the now quiet space. The chandelier gave one last soft tinkle as a draught moved through the room. The fire crackled its final embers. Cold terrace air brushed his face, carrying the clean scent of rain-washed stone. The curtain call came, in no applause, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show weeks passed after the dramatic curtain call in the Vienna Opera House. The grand building resumed its glittering schedule, but an invisible change had settled over its elegant halls. The air in the foyer now carried only the usual scents of fresh hothouse lilies in tall vases, furniture wax on the polished mahogany banisters, and the faint aroma of strong continental coffee served in the refreshment rooms. No lingering cigar smoke or heavy Chanel perfume haunted the corners. Velvet curtains swayed gently in the breeze from opened windows, while cold terrace air mixed with the warm drawing-room atmosphere created by newly lit fires. The crystal chandeliers tinkled softly with the movement of early evening guests, and their light reflecting in the large Art Deco mirrors as if nothing had been shattered there. Baroness Maria von Altenburg faced trial in a hushed courtroom filled with society observers. Stripped of all silk gowns and performed grief, she appeared small and ordinary in simple prison attire. The mask of the elegant widow had been permanently discarded. She spoke quietly during sentencing, her voice lacking any dramatic tremor or rehearsed lines. "I wanted freedom," she said simply. The court showed little mercy. She received a life sentence, her obsession with Karl Bauer, and greed for independence ending in iron bars, rather than a new life of travel and passion. The once beautiful Baroness who had played devotion so convincingly now faced years where no audience would applaud her performance. King Karl Bauer's operatic career ended as abruptly as a broken high note. His resonant tenor voice, once the pride of Vienna, would never grace the grand stage again. Convicted as an accessory, he was sent to a provincial prison, where he occasionally sang for fellow inmates in a makeshift theatre. The handsome Alfredo, who had dreamed of a life with Maria, now performed only for walls and regret. His hands, once steady for demanding arias, trembled when he thought of the digitalis he had helped procure. The scent of stage makeup and sandalwood cologne was replaced by the stark reality of confinement. Love that had masked obsession had cost him everything. Count Otto von Schiller retreated into quiet exile on a small estate outside the city. His rough tweed jackets remained, but the confident stride of the business rival had vanished forever, and the debts to the Baron were eventually settled through legal proceedings, yet the stain of complicity followed him like a shadow. He avoided society gatherings in the opera house entirely. No more pacing near grand pianos or performing old friendship. The fine wine he once enjoyed now tasted bitter, a reminder of the night when rehearsed lines had failed him completely. His transformation from arrogant rival to broken man was complete. No applause, only solitude. Secretary Anna Klein found a modest position in a distant accounting firm, far from the glittering world of Vienna society. Her practical rough tweed suits suited the new, honest work. The leather portfolio that had once hidden altered ledgers now carried only legitimate documents. She had traded promised wealth for a clear conscience, though guilt still visited her in quiet moments. The helpful secretary who had performed efficiency so convincingly now lived with the knowledge that small betrayals had nearly destroyed her. Footsteps on parquet floors no longer echoed with nervous energy. Instead, they marked steady, unremarkable days. Dr. Heinrich Müller lost his medical license and retired to a small village in the countryside. His black bag, once a symbol of trust, gathered dust in storage. The bitter medicine scent that had clung to him during the investigation now seemed like a permanent accusation in his memory. He spent his days walking lonely paths, the sweet liqueur he once sipped to steady nerves replaced by plain water. The trusted physician who had performed concern while supplying poison found no patients and few friends. His transformation was perhaps the most silent. No grand collapse, only a slow fading from the stage of respectable society. The opera house itself transformed in subtle ways. Box 5 remained unoccupied for the entire season, its velvet upholstery cleaned, but the memory of the shattered monocle lingering in the minds of staff and regular patrons. Servants moved through the corridors with softer footsteps, as if respecting the ghosts of old performances. The grand piano in the green room stood silent more often, and the distant piano music from rehearsal rooms carried a more somber tone. Fresh flowers still arrived daily, their delicate fragrance mixing with furniture wax and wood smoke from the hearths, but the air felt lighter, cleansed of conspiracy and hidden motives. Poirot observed these changes from afar, receiving regular updates in quiet letters. He had returned briefly to oversee the final details, his small hands arranging evidence one last time with precise symmetry. The psychology of the case lingered with him. How greed had performed as grief, love as indifference, loyalty as resentment. Each actor had worn their mask until the spotlight of truth burned too brightly. The body had betrayed them all. The dry eyes, the trembling hands, the avoided glances, the singed letters backstage. You watch with Poirot, no? See how the theatre of crime empties after the final act. The Baroness who dazzled in silk now wears prison grey. The tenor whose voice once filled halls now sings only for shadows. The rival's wealth brought no joy. The secretary's ambition led to honest but humble work. The doctor's authority dissolved into village obscurity. You ask yourself, what masks do you wear in your own daily performance? Would they survive Poirot's gentle but relentless questioning? The setting itself had shifted from a glittering stage of wealth and society to a quieter, more reflective space. The elegant country house weekend of murder had become a cautionary tale whispered among opera lovers. Cold terrace air no longer carried tension, but only the clean scent of rain-washed stone. Warm drawing rooms welcomed new audiences eager for music rather than drama. Transformations rippled outward. Distant relatives inherited the Baron's fortune and managed it with careful honesty, free from the shadows of conspiracy. Young singers auditioned for roles once held by Karl Bauer, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded in Box 5. Society adjusted its gossip, moving on to newer scandals, while the lessons of the broken monocle lingered beneath the surface. Poirot had restored order and method. The psychology had triumphed over performance. Greed, fear, love, and hate had all been forced to remove their costumes under the bright lights. No one escaped unchanged. The theatre emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Hercule Poirot sat comfortably in his elegant Brussels apartment on a quiet evening some months after the Vienna affair. A steaming cup of tisane rested on the polished mahogany table before him, its herbal aroma mingling gently with the rich scent of strong continental coffee from his earlier breakfast, and the delicate fragrance of fresh lilies arranged symmetrically in a crystal vase. Soft firelight crackled in the hearth, it casting a warm glow across the room and chasing away the chill of the autumn night air that pressed against the tall windows. Outside, gentle rain pattered on the glass, providing a soft, rhythmic percussion like distant applause fading into silence. The velvet curtains were drawn just enough to frame the scene, while crisp linen napkins and smooth crystal glasses completed the orderly tableau Poirot preferred. He adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision, then smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. His green eyes gleamed with quiet reflection as he leaned back in the armchair, the soft kid leather creaking pleasantly beneath him. The case file marked Broken Monocle lay closed on the table, its contents now committed to memory. News from Vienna had arrived in neat, orderly letters. Maria von Altenburg serving her life sentence with the quiet resignation of a performer whose final role had ended in disgrace. Karl Bauer reduced to occasional prison concerts, his once magnificent tenor voice now echoing off stone walls. Count Otto von Schiller living in self-imposed exile, his debts settled, but his reputation forever stained. Anna Klein working honestly in a modest office, her leather portfolio carrying only legitimate papers, and Dr. Heinrich Müller fading into village obscurity, his medical bag stored away like an abandoned prop. Poirot took a slow sip of the hot tisane, its taste clean and soothing. The theatre of crime, he murmured to the empty room, as though addressing an invisible audience. It always empties in the end, but the lessons, they linger like the scent of wilting flowers. Why do people perform rather than reveal the truth? Because the mask is comfortable, mon ami. Society writes the script long before the curtain rises. A wife must adore her husband, a lover must appear devoted, a doctor must heal, a secretary must serve loyally, a rival must maintain dignified distance. Greed dresses itself in the black silk of grief. Obsession wears the glittering gown of romantic love. Hate performs as patient loyalty. Fear puts on the confident smile of innocence. The little grey cells understand this better than any evidence. The body cannot sustain the lie indefinitely. The dry handkerchief when tears should flow, the steady hands when they should tremble, the perfume trail that contradicts the claimed stillness, the singed letters hidden backstage. And these are not mere clues. They are the moments when the actor forgets the line. In the Vienna Opera House, Maria performed the perfect widow with such technical skill that even the police saw only a natural death. Yet the monocle captured the single instant when performance met reality. Her hand pouring the digitalis, while her husband watched through the lens. That shattered glass was the final prop that exposed the entire production. Karl performed artistic devotion while enabling murder. Schiller performed reluctant friendship while calculating financial gain. Anna performed quiet efficiency while falsifying truth. Müller performed medical concern while supplying the means. Each believed their script flawless until the director arrived. I recall the case of the Dead Man's Mirror in 1934, where a woman performed widowhood with such flawless elegance that even her own reflection seemed convinced. She arranged fresh lilies every morning with trembling yet graceful fingers, wore black silk gowns that rustled with every calculated sigh, and spoke of her late husband in hushed, reverent tones at every dinner party. She carried a small portrait and gazed upon it with seemingly endless sorrow, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Yet Poirot noticed she never once looked directly into the mirror Poirot had placed in her drawing room as a test. True mourning confronts the absence. She had rehearsed the lowered lashes, the soft sobs, the steady yet emotional voice. But the psychology revealed itself. Her pulse remained calm when discussing the inheritance, and her appetite stayed hearty while claiming a broken heart. She had pushed her husband from the balcony for the fortune, masking cold hatred as devoted mourning. The mirror cracked under sustained questioning, and the true face finally emerged, greedy, unrepentant, stripped of all costume. The psychology of revelation is simple yet profound. Guilt always betrays the actor in the smallest unconscious gesture. The hand reaches too steadily for a cigarette in shock. The eyes avoid the very person they claim to mourn. The voice flows too smoothly when lies are rehearsed, but stumbles when truth presses close. People wear masks because revealing the authentic self risks rejection from the audience of society. The wife fears losing security. The lover fears losing passion. The doctor fears losing status. The secretary fears remaining poor. It's so they perform. Greed as grief, obsession as love, complicity as loyalty. Until the spotlight of truth grows too hot and the mask melts. In the end, truth triumphs over performance because lies demand constant energy and rehearsal, while honesty simply exists. Order and method expose the gaps. The little grey cells collect the tells. The dry eyes in the Vienna salon, the trembling hands of the tenor, the avoided glances of the count, the creaking leather portfolio of the secretary, the hesitant medical pronouncements of the doctor. The Baron died because one woman could no longer sustain the role of loving wife when threatened with disinheritance. Her lover enabled it for a shared future. The others benefited in silence. But the monocle, shattered in the Baron's final moment of horror, became the symbol of truth breaking through illusion, and the theatre of life forces masks upon all of us. Society demands the performance of virtue, success, devotion, and composure. Yet beneath every polished role lies the raw human heart, flawed, fearful, greedy, loving, hating. The psychology teaches us that no performance survives forever under careful observation. The body knows the truth even when the face lies. The hands betray, the eyes flicker, the voice cracks. Poirot set the tisane cup down with precise care, arranging it symmetrically with the coffee saucer. The fire crackled warmly, its wood smoke scent blending pleasantly with the lilies and rain-washed air from outside. He drew himself up slightly in the chair, green eyes gleaming with quiet wisdom. "The curtain has fallen on Vienna," he said softly, as though speaking directly to you. "Maria, Karl, Otto, Anna, and the doctor, each transformed by the removal of their masks. The Opera House continues its season, but Box 5 remains a silent reminder. The Baron's fortune passed to honest hands. Justice, slow and methodical, completed its work. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. Watch not only the grand gestures and tearful monologues, but the small hesitations between the lines, the dry eyes where tears should flow, the steady hands where shaking is required, the perfume that contradicts the claimed stillness. In your own daily theatre, ask yourself, what role are you playing? Would your performance convince Hercule Poirot? Truth does not rehearse. Truth simply is. And eventually, every actor forgets their lines, until the next theatre of crime, mes amis. Poirot watches always.